The massive exploration vessel, Eternal Seeker, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of a seemingly ordinary solar system. Captain Minho stood on the bridge, his tall, slender form casting a shadow across the command console. Like all Syntheri, his blue-tinged skin and large eyes were adapted for the dim light of their homeworld. Sensors confirm this is the target system, reported Science Officer Ja, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Third planet matches the ancient records. Minho nodded slowly. 500,000 years ago, the Zintheri Exploration Course had visited this system and cataloged a promising world with primitive life forms. Simple multicellular creatures had just begun colonizing the land. The science team had placed monitoring beacons in orbit and departed, intending to return in a few thousand years. Then the Great War came, records were lost, and this small blue world was forgotten. Until now. Take us in slowly, Minho ordered. Standard approach protocols. As the ship moved toward the third planet, something unexpected appeared on their scanners. Captain, Gia called, her voice rising with alarm. I'm detecting artificial satellites. Thousands of them. Minho frowned. That's not possible. The life forms were primitive. Check your readings. Confirmed, sir. And there's more. Radio signals, light pollution on the night side, evidence of large-scale atmospheric modification. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Something had evolved far faster than any species in recorded galactic history. The Eternal Seeker approached cautiously, using its cloaking systems to avoid detection. They established orbit and began comprehensive scans of the planet, now identified as Earth, in the dominant species' various languages. In the main laboratory, Gia presented her findings to the captain and senior staff. Her expression showed both wonder and concern. The dominant species calls themselves humans. They evolved from the primitive mammals we noted 500,000 years ago. Their development has been unprecedented. She displayed a timeline showing human evolution and technological advancement. The final segment, from basic tools to space travel, was barely visible. It happened so quickly. Most concerning is their rapid technological progress in just the last few hundred years, Gia continued. They've gone from simple mechanical devices to rudimentary artificial intelligence, nuclear weapons, and the beginnings of interplanetary travel. Security Chief Chunho leaned forward. Are they a threat? Gia hesitated. That's difficult to determine. They appear to be highly aggressive. Their history is filled with constant warfare. She displayed images of human conflicts throughout history, ending with modern military equipment. Yet they also create art, music, literature. They care for their young and their elderly. They're complicated. Captain Minho made a decision. We'll send down observation teams. No contact. I want to understand these humans better before we report back to the Council. 3 teams deployed to different regions of the planet, using advanced cloaking technology to move undetected among humans. For 2 weeks, they observed and recorded, becoming increasingly disturbed by what they witnessed. When they reunited on the ship, the atmosphere was tense. Minho Juno spoke first. Their military capabilities are primitive compared to ours, but their weapons are designed for maximum destruction. They split the atom, created biological weapons, developed autonomous killing machines, and they use these weapons against each other. Researcher Sue added, their social structures are fractured. They divide themselves by geographical boundaries, physical characteristics, belief systems. They fight over resources that they could easily share. Yet, interjected Jia, they show remarkable resilience and innovation. When faced with problems, they adapt quickly. They've cured diseases, extended their lifespans, and begun to understand their impact on their environment. Minho contemplated this information. Your recommendation. The room fell silent before Juno finally spoke. Standard protocol for aggressive species is clear: containment or elimination before they become a threat to galactic peace. No, Gia countered firmly. That would be a mistake. There's something special about these humans. She activated a final hologram showing humans performing acts of kindness, helping strangers, rescuing animals, rebuilding after disasters. Their capacity for both destruction and compassion exceeds anything we've documented. And their rate of adaptation. She shook her head in wonder. If they survive their own destructive tendencies, they could become something remarkable. As the team debated, alarm sirens suddenly blared throughout the ship. We've been detected, the sensor operator announced. A human scanning array just locked onto our position. Minho rushed to the bridge, watching in disbelief as primitive but effective radar systems tracked their vessel despite their advanced cloaking. Impossible, he whispered. Our technology should be undetectable to them. On the view screen, they saw a flurry of activity at a human military installation below. Communications channels buzzed with excited human voices. They're launching interceptors, Juno reported tensely. Primitive chemical rockets, but they're on course to reach us. Minho made a split-second decision. Break orbit. Return to safe distance. As the Eternal Seeker retreated to the edge of the solar system, the crew gathered once more. In 500,000 years, they went from simple tools to detecting our presence despite our best stealth technology, Minho said quietly. Imagine what they'll become in another 1,000 years. Juno looked troubled. The question is, will they be our greatest allies or the most terrifying threat the galaxy has ever known? Minho gazed at the small blue planet now distant on their view screen. Send an urgent message to the Council. Tell them we discovered something unprecedented and possibly dangerous. The humans of Earth must be watched carefully. Retries, the skies above Seoul glowed an eerie purple as the massive ship descended through the clouds. Traffic stopped. People poured from buildings, necks craned upward. The vessel hovered silently, its metallic surface reflecting the morning sun like a perfect mirror. Jewon Park clutched her phone tightly, recording the impossible sight. As a junior researcher at the Korean Aerospace Institute, she had spent years analyzing potential extraterrestrial communications. Now the aliens had simply military jets screamed overhead, circling the ship but keeping their distance. On every screen worldwide, regular programming was interrupted by emergency broadcasts. World leaders called for calm while mobilizing their forces. Inside the president's secure bunker beneath Seoul, General Minho stood rigid as he delivered his assessment. The vessel is approximately 2 kilometers in diameter. It's positioned directly above Gwanghwamun Plaza. We have no effective countermeasures if its intentions are hostile. President Hae-yun nodded grimly. And our attempts at communication? No response to radio signals, light patterns, or digital transmissions, replied Communications Director Sunwoo. Wait, something's happening. The giant ship had opened what appeared to be a doorway on its underside. A small craft emerged, descending slowly toward Gwanghwamun Plaza. Police had established a perimeter, keeping the growing crowd at a safe distance. They're landing, General Minho said, watching the live feed. I recommend you remain here, Madam President. President Hae-yun shook her head. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already. I will meet them myself. 30 minutes later, against the advice of her security team, President Hae-yun arrived at the plaza, accompanied by General Minho and a small delegation that included Juan, who had been hastily summoned for her expertise. The alien craft had landed in the center of the plaza. It was smaller than expected, perhaps the size of a bus, with no visible windows or doors. The surface rippled like liquid metal. "Stay behind me," General Minho instructed as they approached. Armed soldiers formed a protective circle around the delegation. When they were 20 meters from the craft, a section of its hull simply disappeared. From the opening emerged 3 figures. Juan gasped. The aliens stood taller than the tallest human, with slender bodies covered in what looked like flexible armor. Their heads were elongated, with large eyes that reflected the surroundings like black mirrors. They had no visible mouth or nose. The central figure raised a hand in what seemed like a universal gesture of peace. Then, to everyone's shock, it spoke in perfect Korean. "We greet the people of Earth with peaceful intentions. I am Navigator Zex of the Galactic Alliance." President Haeyun stepped forward, despite General Minho's attempt to block her. "I am President Haeyun of the Republic of Korea. We welcome you to Earth and wish to understand your purpose here." The alien tilted its head slightly. "We have been observing your world for many of your years. Your species has reached a critical point in its development. We have come to offer membership in the Galactic Alliance." General Minho's hand remained near his weapon. "What exactly is this alliance?" "A community of spacefaring species who share knowledge, resources, and mutual protection," Navigator Zex explained. "There are currently 37 member species across this sector of the galaxy." President Haeyun maintained her composure, though her heart raced. "Why approach us now?" "Because you are in danger," came the reply. "And because you have something we need." The alien produced a small device from which emerged a holographic display. It showed a star map, then zoomed in on a cluster of systems not far from Earth's position. "The Rexian Empire has entered this sector. They are a predatory species that consumes worlds rather than building them. They have destroyed 8 civilizations in the past century alone." Juan couldn't contain herself. "Consumes worlds? What does that mean?" Navigator Zex turned those mirror-like eyes toward her. "They strip planets of resources, including biological material. Your term would be harvesting. No conquered species has..." "You said we have something you need," President Haeyun prompted. "Yes." The alien made a gesture, and the hologram changed to show various scenes of human activity. Military operations, emergency responses, construction projects. "Your species possesses a quality rare in the galaxy. You adapt with remarkable speed. When faced with obstacles, you innovate solutions rather than accepting defeat. The Rexians have never encountered such resistance." General Minho frowned. "You want us to fight your war." "We want your assistance in fighting a war that will reach your world regardless of your wishes," Navigator Zex corrected. "Alone, you cannot hope to survive the Vraxian advance. Together, we believe there is a chance for all our species." President Haeyun looked at the alien, then at the massive ship still hovering above. "We will need to discuss this with other world leaders. This decision affects all of humanity." Of course, Navigator Zex agreed. "But I must caution you, the Vraxians move quickly. Their scout ships have already been detected at the edge of your solar system. You have perhaps one of your months before they arrive in force." As the implications of this statement sank in, Juan realized that humanity had just been thrust onto a galactic stage it barely understood, and the performance might determine whether our species lived or died. The massive training facility orbited Jupiter, far enough from Earth to keep its activities secret from the public, but close enough for rapid deployment if needed. The station, officially called the Joint Species Combat Preparedness Center, but nicknamed the Academy by its occupants, had been constructed in just 3 weeks using Alliance technology. Captain Chuno Kim stood at attention alongside 500 other human recruits in the main assembly hall. After Earth's governments had agreed to join the Galactic Alliance, each nation had selected their finest military personnel for this program. Chuno had been chosen from the Korean Special Forces for his tactical expertise and adaptability. Before them stood Commander Xalax, a towering Drabian with metallic scales that shifted color as he moved. His deep voice echoed through the chamber without any need for amplification. "You are here because your species has potential," he announced. "Potential that may help turn the tide against the Vraxian threat. But potential alone is worthless. You must prove your worth." Chuno noticed the other alien instructors watching from the sidelines. There were at least 8 different species, each more strange than the last. Some appeared almost human, while others seemed to defy biological possibility. "You will be divided into mixed species squads," Commander Xalax continued. "You will train together, eat together, and likely die together when the Vraxians arrive. Any questions before we begin?" A woman near Juno raised her hand. "Sir, what exactly makes humans valuable to the Alliance? We're physically weaker than most species here." The commander's scales rippled blue, amusement, Juno guessed. "An excellent question. The answer will become clear during your training. Dismissed to your assigned quarters. First exercises begin in 2 hours." Chuno found himself assigned to Squad 17, sharing quarters with 3 humans and 3 aliens. His bunkmate was technical specialist Mina Lee, formerly of the Korean Aerospace Defense. The aliens included Tren, a reptilian Silurian, Vox, a creature that seemed made of living crystal, and Kalo, a being covered in short blue fur with 4 arms. "So," Mina said as they stored their limited personal items, "any guesses why we're so special?" Juno shrugged. "Navigator Zex mentioned our adaptability. Maybe that's rare." "It is," confirmed Vox in a voice that sounded like chimes. "Most species develop along predictable evolutionary paths. When faced with obstacles, we develop specific adaptations over generations. Humans..." Kalo's laugh resembled purring. "It is why many Alliance species find humans unsettling. You change too quickly. But against the Vraxians, perhaps this is what we need." Their first training exercise demonstrated exactly what the aliens meant. Squad 17 entered a massive simulation chamber that could reshape itself into various terrains. Today, it had become a dense urban environment. "Your objective is simple," announced the instructor, a sleek, yellow-skinned alien named Sorix. "Reach the extraction point within 30 minutes while evading enemy forces." The exercise began, and immediately things went wrong. The simulated Vraxian forces didn't behave as described in their briefing materials. They used different tactics, different weapons. The alien members of Squad 17 froze, trying to recalibrate their approach based on previous training. Juno didn't hesitate. "Mina, take high ground. Tren and Vox, create a diversion to the east. Kalo, your 4 arms make you perfect for the heavy weapon. Let's move." To Chuno's surprise, they followed his lead without question. They adapted their formation moment by moment, responding to new threats as they appeared. When their planned route was blocked, Juno led them through a building, breaking through walls rather than following expected paths. They reached the extraction point with 2 minutes to spare, the only squad to complete the objective. In the review session afterward, Commander Xalax's scales shifted to an impressed purple. "Explain your approach, Captain Kim." "We improvised, sir. Juno replied simply. When the situation changed, we changed with it. Precisely. The commander turned to address all the trainees. Most galactic species fight wars according to established doctrines developed over centuries. The Vraxians know these doctrines and counter them effectively. Humans, however, fight messily. You change tactics mid-battle. You use tools for purposes they were never designed for. You break rules that other species consider immutable. He displayed footage from Earth's military history, guerrilla warfare, improvised weapons, unexpected battle maneuvers. The Vraxians have conquered 8 civilizations because those civilizations fought predictably. Humans are anything but predictable. Over the following weeks, training intensified. Human squad leaders were encouraged to make unconventional decisions. Engineers like Mina were tasked with modifying Alliance weapons in ways their creators had never considered. One evening, exhausted from a particularly brutal training session, Juno found Mina in their quarters, disassembling her Alliance energy rifle. "What are you doing?" he asked. She grinned, holding up a modified power cell. "Making improvements. Their weapons are incredibly efficient, but they generate heat that goes to waste. I'm routing it to boost the focusing crystal." "Is that safe?" "Absolutely not," she admitted cheerfully. "But it should increase firepower by 30%. Kalo entered the room, noticed the disassembled weapon, and shook his head. Humans, always changing things that work perfectly well. "That's our secret," Juno replied. "On Earth, good enough rarely stays good enough for long." As training continued, the humans noticed something interesting. The alien instructors had begun adopting human tactics. The Vraxian threat was coming, and the Academy was becoming something new. A place where ancient species learned from the galaxy's newcomers how to think differently about warfare. The alarm blared throughout the Alliance cruiser Steadfast, its harsh tone pulling Captain Yunho from a rare moment of sleep. He was on his feet instantly, years of military training overriding fatigue, as he rushed to the bridge. "Report," he ordered, taking his position beside Captain Veller, the Nexary commander of the Steadfast. "Vraxian vessels detected in the Proxima system," replied the sensor officer, her crystalline form glittering under the bridge lights. "They've already engaged the outpost." Yuno studied the tactical display. Proxima was home to a small research station and monitoring outpost. It wasn't strategic. The main view screen activated, displaying real-time images transmitted from the outpost. 3 Vraxian destroyers were methodically dismantling the station's defenses. Captain Veller's tall, slender form tensed. "We are the closest Alliance vessel. 2 other ships are en route, but will not arrive for at least 15 standard hours." "We can't wait," Yuno stated. "The outpost will be gone in 2 hours." Veller hesitated. Alliance protocol was clear. A single cruiser should not engage multiple Vraxian destroyers without support. Yet the 40 humans aboard had been integrated precisely because they didn't always follow standard protocols. "What do you suggest, Captain Kim?" Veller asked. Yunho studied the tactical display again. "The Vraxians expect us to either wait for reinforcements or approach in standard attack formation. Let's do neither." He outlined his plan quickly. The Steadfast would drop out of FTL behind Proxima's largest moon, using its mass to mask their approach. They would then launch a surprise attack focused on the lead Vraxian vessel. "This violates 3 separate tactical doctrines," Veller noted, but there was a hint of curiosity in his voice. "Yes," Yuno agreed with a small smile. "That's the point." The bridge crew, a mix of Alliance species and humans, prepared for battle. Lieutenant Mina, now the ship's weapons specialist, made final adjustments to the modified cannon systems. "These modifications aren't in any Alliance manual," she told Yuno quietly. "Good," he replied. "That means the Vraxians won't expect them either." The Steadfast dropped out of FTL precisely where Yuno had specified, the massive moon shielding them from Vraxian sensors. The ship glided silently through space, all non-essential systems powered down. "Approaching optimal firing position," reported the navigation officer. Yuno turned to Veller. "Ready, Captain." The Nexari gave the equivalent of a smile, a slight ripple of the light reflective patches on his face. "Let us show these predators that not all prey is easily taken." "All stations, prepare for engagement," Yuno announced. "Full power to weapons and shields on my mark." The cruiser swung around the moon's edge, accelerating rapidly toward the unsuspecting Vraxian vessels. For precious seconds, the enemy ships didn't react, their attention focused on the outpost. "Mark," Yuno commanded. The Steadfast roared to life, weapon systems coming online as shields flared bright blue around the hull. Mina's modified main cannon fired first, the energy beam striking the lead Vraxian destroyer with unexpected force. The vessel's shields collapsed under the impact, leaving its hull exposed. "Direct hit," Mina called out, her voice filled with fierce joy. "Their shield generators are down." The Vraxian ships scrambled to respond, turning their weapons toward the Alliance cruiser. They formed up in a standard defensive triangle, exactly as Alliance tactical manuals predicted they would. "They're following the expected counterformation," Veller observed, "which means the Steadfast abruptly changed course, diving beneath the Vraxian formation instead of engaging head-on as doctrine would dictate. The maneuver positioned them directly below the already damaged lead destroyer. "Fire all dorsal weapons," Yuno ordered. Multiple weapon systems unleashed their fury simultaneously. The damaged Vraxian vessel couldn't withstand the concentrated assault. Explosions rippled across its hull before it split apart in a spectacular blast. The bridge crew had no time to celebrate. The two remaining destroyers recovered quickly, bringing their weapons to bear on the Steadfast. The cruiser shuddered as enemy fire struck their shields. "Shields at 60%, reported the defensive systems officer. "We cannot withstand prolonged engagement with two destroyers." Yuno had anticipated this. "Implement Phase 2. Deploy the modified probes." Mina pressed a sequence of commands. 6 small objects launched from the Steadfast, racing toward the Vraxian vessels. These weren't standard Alliance probes. They had been rebuilt by the human engineering team to emit false signals that mimicked Alliance battlecruiser signatures. The effect was immediate. The Vraxian destroyers suddenly detected what appeared to be 3 large Alliance vessels approaching from different vectors. They hesitated, their formation breaking as they attempted to reposition. "They've taken the bait," Veller said, impressed. "Their formation is compromised." "Now we finish this," Yuno replied. "All weapons, target the destroyer to port. Concentrated fire." The Steadfast unleashed another barrage, focusing all its firepower on one target. The Vraxian ship's shields flickered and failed under the assault. Its hull breached in multiple locations before secondary explosions tore it apart from within. The final destroyer, now facing what it believed to be an overwhelming Alliance force, turned and accelerated away from the battle, jumping to FTL as soon as it cleared the system's gravity well. As the Steadfast moved to assist the damaged outpost, the bridge fell silent. Then cheers erupted from the human crew members, quickly joined by their alien colleagues. Captain Veller approached Yuno, bowing slightly in respect. 3 destroyers. Alliance doctrine states this was impossible. Yunho shrugged. On Earth, we have a saying, impossible is just an opinion. As damage reports came in and medical teams treated the injured, word of the victory spread to other Alliance vessels. For the first time since the war began, a small Alliance force had decisively defeated a superior Vraxian fleet. Something new had entered the battlefield, human unpredictability. The Grand Chamber of Alliance High Command fell silent as Admiral Sujin took the central platform. The circular room housed representatives from 24 species, their diverse forms arranged in tiered seating. Massive view screens displayed tactical maps of the ongoing conflict with the Vraxians. 6 months had passed since humans had joined the war effort. 6 months of gradual but unmistakable change in the tide of battle. The Vraxians have withdrawn from 3 key sectors. Admiral Sujin announced, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. They've abandoned forward bases in the Centauri Arm and the Rigel Expanse. High Commander Zell, a tall being with iridescent skin that shifted colors with his emotions, leaned forward. This is unexpected. The Vraxians have never voluntarily relinquished conquered territory before. They're not being generous, Sujin replied. They're consolidating their forces. She gestured, and the tactical display zoomed in on a region near the galactic core. Red markers showed unusually high concentrations of Vraxian vessels. Our analysis suggests they're planning a concentrated attack against a high-value target, she continued. Based on their movement patterns and supply lines, we believe that target is Ilaria. Murmurs of concern spread through the chamber. Ilaria, the moon where the Academy was located, had become the heart of the Alliance's new combat training program. Thousands of personnel from dozens of species now trained there under human guidance. If they destroy Ilaria, they eliminate our greatest advantage, said Zell, his skin darkening with concern. The new tactics and technologies developed there have been crucial to our recent victories. Admiral The chamber erupted in confused voices. Zell called for silence, his skin now pulsing with surprise. Explain, he commanded. Instead of reinforcing Ilaria, Sujin said calmly, we attack their staging area at Proxima Durrani. Strike while their forces are gathered, but before they're ready to move. She displayed another tactical map showing the Vraxian staging area. Their fleet was massive, over 200 warships gathered in one system. This would be the largest single engagement of the war, Zell observed. The risk is enormous. So is the potential reward, countered Sujin. We could eliminate a third of their combat capability in one battle. The Alliance commanders debated intensely. Many expressed skepticism. The plan required perfect coordination between fleet elements that had never worked together before. Others pointed out the numerical disadvantage they would face. Yet the recent successes had earned humans a measure of trust. After 3 hours of discussion, High Commander Zell made his decision. We will implement Admiral Sujin's plan, he announced. All available ships will converge on Proxima Durrani in 48 hours. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Alliance vessels from across the galaxy raced toward the rendezvous point. Engineering teams worked without rest to implement the modifications human technicians had developed. Aboard the flagship Resolute, Admiral Sujin reviewed the final battle plan with her staff. The human-alien command team had developed a strategy unlike anything in Alliance military history. The Vraxians expect us to follow traditional doctrine, she explained to the assembled commanders. They fought the Alliance for decades and believe they understand our capabilities and limitations. She gestured to the holographic display showing the Alliance fleet formation. We will approach in standard defensive formation, exactly as they expect. But here, she highlighted specific vessel groups. And here, we've positioned our specially modified ships. When we give the signal, they'll execute maneuvers the Vraxians have never seen before. On the day of battle, the Alliance fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima Durrani system. As anticipated, they found the Vraxian armada still preparing for their planned assault on Ilaria. "They've detected us," reported the sensor officer. Vraxian vessels moving to combat formation. Admiral Seujin watched calmly as the enemy fleet reacted exactly as predicted, arranging themselves in their standard attack pattern. A formation designed to counter Alliance tactics they had faced for generations. "All ships maintain standard approach," she ordered. "Wait for my signal." The two fleets closed on each other, energy weapons flaring across the void of space. The initial exchange went poorly for the Alliance, their shields taking heavy damage from the numerically superior Vraxian force. "Shields at 60% across the fleet," reported a tactical officer, anxiety evident in his voice. Seujin checked the tactical display one final time. The Vraxian fleet had fully committed to their formation, focusing on what they perceived as the Alliance's vulnerable center. "Now," she said simply, "execute Operation Thunderbolt." Throughout the Alliance fleet, specially prepared ships suddenly broke formation. Vessels that appeared damaged suddenly accelerated to full power. Ships that had seemed to retreat now turned to attack the Vraxian flanks. Most dramatically, a group of 50 modified frigates activated a technology humans had helped develop, synchronized shield harmonics that allowed them to combine their defensive fields into one massive protective bubble. This formation plowed directly into the Vraxian center, seemingly impervious to their concentrated fire. The Vraxian command structure, faced with tactics they had never encountered, hesitated critically. Their coordinated attack broke down as individual ship commanders attempted to respond to threats they didn't understand. On the bridge of a Vraxian dreadnought, Supreme Commander Vorn watched in growing horror as his carefully arranged fleet dissolved into chaos. What is... His tactical officer could only shake his head in confusion. "They're fighting like Vraxians, but with strategies we've never seen." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Vraxian fleet was in full retreat, having lost nearly half their vessels. The Alliance losses were significant, but far less than anyone had predicted possible. As damage reports came in, Engineer Juwu stood beside Commander Donghyun on an observation deck, watching repair crews work. "This changes everything," Donghyun said quietly. Juwu nodded. "The Vraxians have never experienced defeat on this scale." "It's not just the victory," Donghyun replied. "It's how we achieved it." The Alliance learned to fight differently today. The Durrani Gambit, as it came to be known, marked the true turning point of the war. For the first time in centuries, the Vraxians faced an enemy that could not only match their strength but outthink them. Sunlight streamed through the massive crystal dome of the Grand Hall on Nexus Prime. 1 year had passed since Earth joined the conflict against the Vraxians. Representatives from every Alliance world gathered for a historic ceremony. The vast chamber, designed to accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes, hummed with excited conversation in dozens of languages. Ambassador Junot stood near the central platform, adjusting the formal blue uniform that marked him as Earth's official representative. He still found it hard to believe how much had changed in a single year. "Nervous?" asked Krell, the Tallarite ambassador who had become a close friend. "A little," Junot admitted. "A year ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now I'm about to sign a peace treaty on behalf of Earth." Krell's furry face formed what humans had learned was a smile. Your species adapts quickly. It's why we're all still alive. The Vraxians had sued for peace 3 months earlier, after the decisive battle of Terex Prime. Their once mighty empire had crumbled under a series of defeats engineered largely through human-inspired tactics. The peace terms were generous: no reparations, no surrender of territory, only a commitment to join the alliance as equals rather than conquerors. A chime sounded, signaling the start of the ceremony. The assembled delegates took their places as High Commander Zell entered, his skin glowing a calm blue. Behind him walked a sight few would have thought possible a year ago: a Vraxian delegation led by Supreme Commander Vorn. Today marks not the end of a conflict, but the beginning of a new understanding, Zell announced, his voice carrying throughout the hall. For too long, the Vraxians have known only conquest. For too long, the Alliance has fought merely to survive. Now we forge a different path. Juno studied the Vraxian leader carefully. Vorn stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled body rippling with powerful muscles. Yet there was something different in his bearing now. Less arrogance, more awareness. The treaty signing proceeded with representatives from 37 worlds adding their marks to the document. When Juno's turn came, he felt the weight of the moment. His signature represented not just Earth, but a fundamental shift in how humanity saw its place in the universe. The human, Juno, called Vorn unexpectedly as Juno returned to his seat. The hall fell silent. Vraxians rarely addressed other species directly. "Yes, Supreme Commander," Juno replied, keeping his voice steady. "I wish to understand something," Vorn said. "My species has conquered worlds for 10,000 years. We encountered hundreds of civilizations, many technologically superior to yours. Yet none defeated us as you have. Why?" Juno considered his answer carefully. "Perhaps because we never saw this as a war to be won, but as extinction to be avoided. Humans fight hardest when survival is at stake." "There is more," Vorn pressed. "Your tactics, your adaptations, they make no sense. You abandoned proven strategies for untested ones. You modified working technology when there was no need." "That's what humans do," Juno replied simply. "We're never satisfied with good enough. We always look for better ways, even when current methods work. It's our greatest strength and sometimes our greatest weakness." In her address to the assembly that followed, Admiral Seujin expanded on this theme, explaining what humanity had brought to the Alliance. Humans didn't win this war. We simply reminded you of something you had forgotten through centuries of fighting. Adaptation isn't just about survival. It's about finding new ways forward when the old paths are blocked. The treaty ceremony concluded with an announcement that would have been unthinkable a year earlier: the formation of joint colonies between former enemies. The first human Vraxian settlement would begin construction within months, a symbol of cooperation between species that had nearly destroyed each other. As the formal proceedings ended, the Grand Hall transformed for a celebration. Music from 24 worlds filled the air. Beings who had been mortal enemies now shared food, drink, and stories. On a balcony overlooking the festivities, General Sunwoo found herself standing beside Ambassador Krell, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. "Did you really know we would make such a difference?" she asked. "Or were we just your last desperate hope?" Krell's compound eyes shimmered in the light of Nexus Prime's setting sun. "Perhaps both. When we first observed Earth, we saw a species constantly at war with itself. We feared you might be another version of the Vraxians. What changed your mind?" "We watched longer," Krell explained. "We saw how humans fight fiercely, yes, but also how you rebuild together afterward. How you create art during your darkest hours. How you sacrifice for strangers and forgive enemies. Sunwoo looked out at the celebration below, where humans mingled freely with dozens of alien species, already learning new languages, sharing jokes, building connections. And now, she asked. Now the cosmos has been reminded of something important, Krell replied. That sometimes the youngest voices have the most to teach. Across the hall, a human engineer was explaining a new propulsion concept to a group of Raxian scientists. Nearby, children from 3 different worlds played a game they had just invented together. The alliance was transforming. Human music, art, and ideas spread rapidly through member worlds. Alliance technology improved Earth rapidly in return. But the greatest change was less tangible, a renewal of hope in a galaxy that had grown accustomed to endless conflict. As night fell on Nexus Prime, the celebration continued under stars that no longer seemed so distant or cold. The cosmos